When you first heard of the project, did you want to be a part of this, and what was the audition process? Marin?
I was sent the project, and I immediately looked up Melissa. And I mean, my first thought was that I should be a part of this no matter what's going on, no matter what even the script was, nothing else about it, but I felt like this deserves every bit of attention it can possibly get. And then I looked up Melissa, and I could not believe this woman, her energy, her passion, how articulate she was. She's a true warrior, and I thought that if I could get anywhere near her, it would be life-changing, and it definitely has been.
Betsy?
Is this on? Yeah. Okay. My agent got the script, and I'm from Bay City, Michigan, which is about 45 minutes away from Flint. So I was already, well aware of the water crisis in Flint. And he came to me with the role of LeeAnne, and I read it and loved it. And my only hesitation was sometimes, projects don't end up coming to fruition. And I felt if that happened with this, I would be haunted, because I just really needed, the story so needed to be told. And I really wanted to be a part of telling it, because it's very personal for me, because I'm from there, but also for all of us, because you can relate to everybody on the screen.
Now, you were mentioning Melissa. Melissa is here today.
Melissa!
And since this is essentially a crowd of actors, I wanted you to talk a little bit about portraying a real person, because it's one thing when you're creating a backstory and you can come up with whatever you want. But here's a real person, and obviously someone you care about so deeply, you're being moved to tears right now. And what was it like meeting with her, and what do you take from these meetings to inform your performance?
I've played real people before, but never anybody that was still alive. And certainly never anybody who is currently still experiencing whatever the crisis or the story is. I mean, she's living this to this day. What day are you guys on right now?
1,276.
As of today. So I remember asking the Lifetime people, like, can you give me Melissa's contact info? How much does she want? And they said, well, we don't really know how much. We haven't talked to her about if she's willing to talk to you. And I wrote her the weirdest email I've ever written, and I said, this will be the weirdest email maybe you ever get. I think the subject line was like, hi, I'm playing you, exclamation point, and I was like, I don't know how, I was like, I want to know everything and be around you, whatever you want, but I just want to know what you're comfortable with. And so you just let me know, because I'm standing by. She wrote me back right away. We talked that night for like a couple hours. We were texting all night. Like, it was she is, she's incredibly charming, and she is full of information, and her whole energy, I felt completely invigorated. But then I went to Flint and spent time with her and her family. And I have to say that what I said to her was, I was sort of like, I don't know how to do this. This is not a challenge that I've ever experienced before. I have no precedent for this. But I'm getting this feeling after being around you that I just want you to know I am in no way going to be doing an impression of you. I'm not gonna, that will not be my goal. The goal here is to, I think for all of us, we felt in some way, not to speak for Betsy, but to say that we were committed to telling the story of this particular dramatization. Yeah. because we knew also that a lot of facts were going to be elided or cut out or simplified in some way to streamline the narrative and get the information out there in the cleanest way possible. So I remember telling her, don't expect like a spot on, like an impression. That's not going to be my goal. My goal is to play the role as it is in this story, in this movie. And also I thought maybe it'll make it less awkward. But there were a lot of specific things that I threw in there. The word douche canoe, I believe, makes an appearance. Because that's one of her favorite words. And that day I was like, I don't think I should say jerk there. I have another suggestion. And they were like, what are you saying? I was like, trust me. It'll matter to Melissa and her friends and family. So there were like certain things like that I threw in there that made me feel like I was giving her a little like, hi, remember this? And very specific details and things like that for me, but it was something that I'd never done before. And it felt like, okay, I know I'm gonna be seeing her a lot. She's gonna be a part of this. So it actually doesn't feel like it's about doing an impression of this person, but more trying to absorb her energy. And I just tried to spend time with her and like soak it in. You know, I recorded her talking about stuff a lot and I would play it while I was on set to myself to sort of get that rhythm in my mind and sort of her energy back inside me, because she has way more energy than me at any hour of the day. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge I've never had before, and I don't know that I will ever have again. It's unusual.
And Betsy, would you talk about LeeAnne and what you took?
Yeah. So as you saw in the movie, LeeAnne does not live in Flint anymore. And so I didn't have the chance to meet her. And I was so jealous of you that you.
Listen, there's a lot of Melissa to go around, I'll tell you that.
I picture when you were like, hey, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm here, that Melissa would just be like,
yeah.
I'm open.
Yeah, no, she was like, when can we talk? Are you free in 5 minutes? I was
and then,
whoa.
like, when I met her and met Nayyirah, I was like, oh my God, I keep saying to them, it was like you would think I was meeting, like, Madonna. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait. Like, it was just, because they are so much in this story, the superheroes, and is tragic as the whole situation is, that's the silver lining. Is that these women, and I love it, Melissa, when you say, I'm not an activist, I'm just a pissed off mom. You are a million times more than that. But for me, it was not just the people that we were playing, all the people that we don't even meet, and then that this is still happening. Anything, you know, when it's true, it just raises the stakes. Not that I don't mean, bless you. Not that I don't mean it when it's characters that aren't based on real people, but it just, I think we all, not to speak for anyone else either, but we just wanted to do the people in Flint justice, because they deserve it and they need it. And it was, you know, it was a privilege to do.
And also I feel like something that we were talking about a lot is that, you know, now I think there were 5,300 communities, is this right, Melissa, where that have lead levels at the level of Flint around the country. And something that Melissa and I were talking about is, you know, on November 9th, she wrote this post on Facebook that was like, welcome to Flint, the rest of the country, because we're rolling back the regulations. And so this is not a story that is about one community that is in crisis. And this isn't even a story about 5,300 communities that are in crisis. This is something that we all need to absorb, kind of how easy it is for one person who is not an activist to stand up and try to do what's right. And, you know, I remember talking to Melissa and going, you know, this reminds me, I'm always tired, I don't feel good. I mean,
Yeah.
they're getting up there every day, and yeah. So this is about a community and how you can lean on each other, and when you need to do what's right, you do what's right. And it's for all of us. It's for all of us. They're all teaching us how to do it, and we're gonna need to learn from them. They've been doing it longer than all of us, and we're gonna need to keep doing it, hopefully not for 8 years, but hopefully.
And it's so clear when you're just talking about this now, you're both moved to tears, and it was paramount for you to do them justice, which clearly you did. I don't think anyone could argue that. I just want to check, did you have a chance to then talk with LeeAnne over the phone or email with her, or this is all what you drew from it?
Yeah, I mean, no, I did not. She was not available. you do your research, because one of the things that they spoke out publicly, and so I watched videos, but again, it's like Marin said, you don't want to do an imitation. It's nothing like that. Like for me, I just looked at it like the stakes are higher because she's a real person. These are real people, but for me, it's visceral. Like everything that she did as a mom, I got, and that's how I would, any character I play, I put myself in their shoes, whether they're real shoes or imaginary shoes. But God, it was hard to, at night, like we really didn't put it away. And, you read I read the New York Times every day, and the Times a lot of times would mention Flint, but I feel like most people aren't talking about it. And then, just given everything that's going on right now, it's not just about the water. There's so many other things that people are saying, no, that's fine. And then collectively, and that's the beauty too, that collectively we're standing up and saying, it's actually not so fine. I have never been more nervous during a screening than I was of Flint. Never more nervous. And I didn't really know what to expect from everybody watching and from myself. And I mean, and I've seen movies where I'm in like almost every single frame. That was easier. And that's not easy for me either. But that was easier than this because you're telling their story, and their story is still ongoing, and no one is listening. I was telling you before we came in, and it just, the strength of some of the people that we met, and more than a few just sobbed after, and I just hugging this young woman, and I said, I didn't do this to your water, but I'm so sorry, because no one has apologized. And as a human and as actors, that's why we do what we do, because, you want to tell stories. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. And I just feel like they so deserve an apology. I don't think they're going to get it, but, I think they'd be happy with clean water.
I think that, there was definitely a feeling that, we all felt really proud that this is going to be on basic cable. Yeah. Because if this was a little indie, maybe in a couple of theaters somewhere, or you have to buy it on iTunes, or you have to have HBO, or whatever it is, that just makes it harder for people that maybe wouldn't necessarily seek out something like this to see. And we feel like, hopefully there'll be a lot more people that will be able to watch this, and if it's just sort of in their homes and accessible to them, and a dramatization and not a documentary that maybe sounds a little more intimidating to watch. I also wanted to add something onto the fact of that it was difficult to, like LeeAnne wasn't available. There were a lot of people involved in the actual story that were hesitant and reticent to be in touch with a lot of the filmmakers. They were understandably scared that we were, as a production, potentially going to exploit the story or make it seem like it was all over or a happy ending. So there were a number of people who were the real people involved that were nervous. So, I was lucky because for me playing Melissa, but she kind of contributed though to everybody involved in such a huge way. Yes. But her reaction to that in a lot of ways was to be like, well, then let me just tell you what actually happened. Let me make sure that I tell you the facts and communicate to you how everybody's feeling and how we're coping. But I also feel like, that's a major thing, and that's part of why we were so nervous when we were actually in Flint sitting there, because we thought I can only imagine it would be so terrifing to imagine what you're gonna see up there, as your community.
I mean, what if they were like, well, no, that wasn't it. And you just, what, I mean, that really, it's that these are real people that just deserve so much better than what they have right now. And you want to be truthful in telling their story and honest in the storytelling. And then also, maybe I'm naive, but I don't think so. I really hope that this helps move this in the direction. And I love that Lifetime did a screening in Flint. And it was so, I mean, it was so beautiful. And again, like you got to look at the silver lining, and that it was, I think it felt wonderful, you know, I think it had to feel heard. You want to feel heard. And that we will tomorrow do a screening in Washington, D.C., which I also love. The Lifetime they're just nowhere to run
And
when you're in D.C.
and that they showed that documentary short that they shot with Melissa, with Nayyirah, with all these people who are actually there. That will be linked every time they screen it. And that PSA, that's so incredible to me, because I feel like we really also did not want that at the end of this, people would be like, wow, that was a really moving story. Like, what are we going to have for dinner later? You know, like that it would move people at the end of it to get up and make a phone call or do something. And that, to me, that makes me feel that way when I see that stuff at the end. And you're left with Melissa and the real people, not us. It's not about us taking a bow. It's actually like passes the baton to them again, which I love.
And you're talking about basic cable, and what's great is that it will live on, so people can, when it's 3 a.m. and they're looking for something, they can go into Lifetime movies and maybe learn something. Let's talk about those movies for a minute, because TV movies are notoriously fast. You know, like people will say, oh yeah, we did an entire movie in 31 days. What was the shooting schedule like, and where were you, and what were your days like?
It was just, I know.
A blur. Yeah.
I kept saying, I'm like, it's like Groundhog Day, but not a good Groundhog Day. It's like the water is still bad. It was just over a month, right? Just over a month. We shot in Toronto.
There was a lot of B-roll, obviously, that you can
A
see.
lot of B-roll in Flint.
Yeah.
Our director and a whole team went to Flint. Some days none of them were easy, but, you know, some were more difficult than others, you know. And then for me, seeing it the other night, I just like it's like it killed me all over again when LeeAnne, when they realized that in boiling the water, that she was, I get so mad. She was poisoning her own kids.
It's like a horror movie. We were saying that too. It's like especially the first half of it. It's like a horror movie. It's what it feels. I remember watching it. We were sitting there, and you're just like, your skin is crawling. I mean, the experience was extremely visceral.
I'm so glad you were next to me the other night. I had to hold your hand.
I'd
was
never
like,
seen it until we were watching it in Flint. And we were in the back row, and there was like 2,000 of the Flint residents, and we were just like gripping each other. And the audience was like, I know we keep talking about it. It was like, they were like booing the villains,
yes,
applauding. I mean, really applauding the heroes. Like the names came up, and they'd be like, yeah, like because they didn't know who was playing who. So then the Pastor Harris's name comes up, and they're going crazy. Certain lines come out, they're shouting things out.
Yeah.
Like we were overwhelmed. It was really.
And I think it was the reaction of the people in the audience that I was like, oh my God, they're so with us. And then I felt like, okay, we put the right thing up there. I'm not saying, you know, I felt like we did them justice. I hope that we did. I hope we did.
You did. There are audience questions, and I just want to just tell Vincenzo and Jennifer, I think, but both of those questions were covered. But I will ask one from Dexter from Brooklyn. And it's, did you do any improv, or was it strictly the script?
Mostly I don't know if this even, yeah, it is. Mostly the City Hall scenes were a lot of improv. Bruce Beresford, who directed it, was very much, he would be like, oh, go ahead, talk over each other.
Yeah.
You know, like, let's feel alive, whatever. And I was like, well, knowing Melissa, if you give me permission, I'm not gonna shut up. So I had to keep going to him and being like, am I doing too much? Because I feel like if you're telling me I'm allowed to do that, that's what Melissa would do. So I did a lot of extra shouting. I would be like, sorry guys, like this is Melissa, so I'm just gonna, I did a lot of extra shouting in the town hall scenes. In most of the other group scenes, I feel like not a ton.
No, not a ton. I feel like we always, another fear of mine is I wanted to make sure it was that because you're playing real people, that on the screen, they're accessible. And I also, in the back of my mind, I think on top of that is I was aware that I'm like, I want I wanted people that don't live in Flint to also be able to relate and feel like they were going through this journey. And I remember also in a lot of scenes, you know, like group scene stuff, I always, and this is something I always do in my work, I try and make it real, like she's breathing, she's moving, it's conversational, you know, like when we realize that that Nayyirah is Muslim and doesn't drink. And I'm like, oh yeah, like, you know, that was ad lib. And I'm like, well, I'm not Muslim. And it was, you know, and it was a nice moment. And then the grocery store, I think we did. And it's just like, I like that. Like the things that, especially after you've had to, you know, you've been lucky enough to play a character for a while and work with other people that are playing their characters for a while. And you kind of, it's a nice dance.
Yeah, I felt like especially we found some fun stuff when because we were always next to each other in those town halls.
Yeah.
So I started to feel like, okay, we're getting to good sense of like when it's like I'll shout a little more and now you shout a little more.
I feel like there was like a baton passing that I think when you band together to fight something that you have to do, you know, and it was I'm, you know, very thankful for our rapport because I feel like that was important to the story too.
Okay. And Steve asks, did you have any opposition from the government?
Are they listening?
Always.
Hello?
Because that will affect my answer.
Always.
I'm happy to not worry about that. There are people that can worry about that, and I don't have. Once we were there, this was the story we were going to tell, and that was more important than anything. And it was so nice that, like, you know, they'd make us look sick. When Jill and Marin and I were doing press in LA, it was like, we've never all been pretty together. Like, which is exactly how it should be. And I loved how, it was just real in that way.
I mean, there are some people who do not appear in this particular dramatization because they're of sort of legal complications. So I think wherever there would have been some pushback from certain officials and corners of the government, those things just don't appear in this particular story. So there are certainly a lot of things that don't show up. Certain people that are now being indicted for manslaughter and things like that perhaps don't appear in this particular dramatization.
And may there be more.
That's a sequel. That's the
Yeah, the sequel is going to be amazing.
It could be a miniseries because there's so much.
And actually, you brought up something that I was wondering, because you've both played glamorous characters. You've both played, you know, characters where you get your hair and makeup done and you're wearing gorgeous clothes. And in this, it's decidedly not. You know, when you go like this and you take out a handful of hair. Yeah. So what do you like playing just a little bit more real and not the makeup, or makeup to make you look bad?
Oh, I was like, bring that. On Breaking Bad, I was like, put the dark circles under my eyes. Like, who looks good when your husband's been shot and you're in the hospital? Like, there are plenty of people that want to do that. That's a different job. Like, this is the job I'm better at doing. And it's exciting. Like, that to me is so much more fulfilling.
I feel like I've primarily played unglamorous characters.
I know. I was like,
that says about me.
Have we played glamorous?
There was one thing that I did when I was supposed to play. I did a miniseries where I was supposed to play like the trophy wife, and I remember feeling like that was going to be the biggest challenge I've ever had. And it was incredibly stressful. I was like, no, how do I, oh God, like having to worry about actually looking good all the time was terrifying and unusual for me. I feel like that was the more strange stretch for me. So, so that was not unusual for me at all.
And would each of you just go back and tell everyone how you first got your SAG card? Oh, come on, it's not that long ago.
I got mine in a Sears commercial. I was living in Seattle. I moved there after college because, as I like to say, that's where actors go when you want to be a big star. And I wanted to do plays, and that's what I did. And I got a Sears commercial, and I was so thankful because it paid my rent for a month. And I was doing a play, and I had to let me out and get to play, and so that I could go do the commercial. And got my SAG card, never looked back.
I was doing a play with Bill Irwin that he wrote and directed at the Signature Theater. It was the Bill Irwin season. And he was very close friends with the late Jonathan Demme. And Jonathan came to see the play and contacted me and said, I'm doing this movie right now in the city, and we're almost done with shooting. There isn't really anything I could give you to do in it, but if you would think it was fun to basically just hang out on the set for a day, I'll find a place for you to like be in the background kind of or whatever. And I was like, yes to anything you say. So he was shooting, it was The Manchurian Candidate. There is a scene in which it's a very big scene with Ted Levine and Denzel, and I play an army transcriber who is transcribing their conversation. And I'm just sitting there fake typing, looking back and forth in this one scene in the movie. And that was the first thing I ever did on camera. And Jonathan kept coming over to me in between takes, and he was like, isn't this cool? Don't you love this? Isn't this awesome? He wouldn't talk to them, and he would come over and be like, are you having fun? Like, and he was like, every time I think like she should look up at them, you do. It's so great. And I was like, oh my God. He was so nice. He was so nice. He was so amazing and great. And after that, then I was like, then he called me, be like, Rachel getting married. I have like a similar, no lines, part of that. He was such a great person. He came to see every play I ever did. He was a really special person to me as just a pal and a great supporter. So that was how I did. I have a ridiculous no lines part where I'm like going like this a lot.
I should not have left my bag over there with the tissues because you both need them. Now, what, I know we're winding up here, so I just wanted to leave it with what advice and words of encouragement could you give to your colleagues here?
Okay. That look is I have so much and so little to say. I feel like for me the most fulfilling thing about doing a movie like Flint is it's the storytelling, and so lucky to tell someone else's story. And I also feel like I'm just happy to do what I do. I don't care. I mean, I care where it is, but I really don't care where it is. As long as we get to do this. And when I did Breaking Bad and watching Cranston come in every day, and he had, he wasn't 20 when he got that job. He'd worked for a long time, and you hear about, we all have our stories about all of the shitty day jobs we do so that we're able to do this, and it's worth it to do it. And every day, I don't ever want to give up whatever job it is, to show up and just be thankful to get to do what we do. I mean, I don't know how many times I talk about loving what I do and the ups and the downs and everything in it that we all go through, and we're all, war buddies in that way. But it is an absolute privilege that anybody would want to see our work, and just to be thankful for that every day. And I feel like if you do that, you're going to put your best work out there, and also just, the way that you carry yourself. I think you attract that too. And I think that would probably be my best advice.
You probably should have gone after me.
Why?
I wonder every day right now, what's the point? Why? What's the point? Why? So I feel like I try to find an answer to that every day. And we were really lucky with this, because we woke up every day shooting that, and we were like, I know why today. Yeah. I know why today. And I mean, it's because of her. And that like is in my head every day right now. And some days, if I don't feel, if I'm not sure that this work, if I'm struggling to find a reason for this work, then I feel like, okay, find a reason for being here on earth today and give something else back today. Go volunteer somewhere today. Go do something else today. Make some phone calls today. And I feel like in this moment, whatever we can do with our limited skill set, really, in the grander scheme of the world. I mean, I hope that a lot of you also are like civil rights lawyers and things, but I feel like I feel like right now in this moment in time, I feel like I'm very strongly feeling like whatever the skill set you possess, use if it's just your voice and your reach somehow, and whatever that skill set is. I just feel like for me it's all about finding the reason for why you're doing what you're doing every day. And if you're not sure, then go out and make the reason and be the reason, and whatever you have to give, find a way to plug that in. That's sort of how I feel these days. I feel it's a really hard world right now, and it's not going to get easier anytime soon. But I do feel like we're all in this together. And with what you said, that's why we're doing this, to try to build bridges between each other. And I don't know. It's a tough moment right now. And I think that we're all just the fact that we're all sitting in this room right now, and that we've been sitting in rooms together the last few days, and it gives me a lot of hope.
It also, I mean, it's been a rough almost year, I don't think I've ever been more proud to be an actor than right now. And I say that in doing this for all of these reasons. And then I also, after last November, I thought, with everything that's going on, I am so proud to be on a comedy, because that's part of what we do too, that other people don't get to do and give. And it's, I also, like, one of the reasons I think I do what I do and what we do, why we do it, is because it's so human. There's empathy, it's human, and it's also just like, I feel like if we, granted, there are not many laughs in Flint. It is not a comedy. But if we can, I feel like in where we are and everything, if we can find some way still to laugh about things, and I know we're going to get through it. And that's part of my job too. It's a different show than this. But I'm so thankful that we get to do what we do. Again, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. And wherever you do it, it is a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming.